The story of Betty Burge's bloody boarding house is a tale filled with deceit, murder, and the dark secrets that lurk behind closed doors. It all began when Rosa Mary Dean, a desperate and destitute woman, returned to Franklin, Tennessee in 1949 with a bag full of secrets and a plan to blackmail an old acquaintance. Rosa Mary Dean had a troubled past, having separated from her husband and traveled around the Midwest. In her new guise as a grieving widow, she preyed on the sympathies of strangers. Upon arriving in Franklin, she intended to seek shelter with friends, but they were not home. Forced to find an alternative, she made her way to the boarding house of Betty Burge on West Folk Street. Betty's boarding house was no haven for the respectable people of Franklin. Instead, it attracted a motley crew of transients, drunks, and criminals seeking bootleg liquor. Little did Rosa Mary Dean know that her stay at the Burge boarding house would give her a front-row seat to a deadly love affair that would soon make headlines across Tennessee. The affair involved John Golden, a middle-aged day laborer, and Betty Burge herself. Despite being married, John had fallen deeply in love with Betty and wanted to escape his marriage. In a twisted turn of events, he concocted a plan to murder his wife, Sally. On a fateful day in November 1944, John convinced Sally to walk with him to a supposed job on a dairy farm near the Harpeth River. Betty coincidentally joined them on the walk. Once they reached a fence near the river, John revealed his true intentions. He held Sally down while he bludgeoned her with his cane, and Betty helped him dispose of the body in the river. Days later, Sally's corpse was found in the river, and the true nature of her death was discovered. John was brought in for questioning, and under pressure, he confessed to the murder. He also revealed Betty's involvement, claiming that she had masterminded the plan. John was convicted and sentenced to 60 years in prison. Betty Burge, however, managed to escape murder charges. The boarders in her home provided alibis, testifying that she was taking care of her mother at the time of the crime. But the dark cloud of suspicion never fully lifted from the Burge boarding house. 5 years later, on a rainy December night, Rosa Mary Dean returned to Franklin, ready to expose her secrets. However, before she could do so, her life was brutally cut short. Her mangled body was discovered behind the old Franklin High School. The police investigation quickly led them back to the Burge boarding house, given its reputation for housing unsavory characters. As the police arrived at the Burge house, they noticed the disarray and dirtiness of the place. Strangely, one window in Betty's room was clean, while the others were dirty. Suspicion mounted as officers found blood smeared around the cleaned window cracks. Among the boarders, a troublemaker named Arthur Lewis Smith became the prime suspect due to his violent history. However, as the investigation unfolded, Smith was cleared of suspicion. Sherman Burge, Betty's son, also came under scrutiny when blood was found under his fingers and on one of his hats. He claimed it was from his work at a slaughterhouse, but further testing was needed to determine if it was human blood. The police brought in every person from the boarding house for questioning, but the focus ultimately turned to Betty and Sherman. The investigation took a dramatic turn when Bobby Woodard, a resident of the boarding house, testified against the Burges. Woodard revealed that Rosa Mary Dean had threatened to expose Betty's involvement in Sally Golden's murder. In a fit of rage, Sherman killed Dean, slashing her throat and nearly decapitating her. Bobby reluctantly helped dispose of the body, under the threat of Sherman's knife. With Bobby's testimony, Betty and Sherman Burge were found guilty of first-degree murder. Their execution was initially scheduled, but an appeal allowed their sentences to be commuted. Betty died in prison in 1958, while Sherman was released in 1975 after serving 25 years of his sentence. They were both buried near Rosa Mary Dean's unmarked grave at nearby Mount Hope Cemetery. The boarding house, now infamous, passed into the hands of Betty's lawyer, who sold the property after the trial. Eventually, the building was torn down, leaving an empty lot on West Folk Street, a silent testament to the bloody history of the Burge boarding house. Please like the video and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel for daily ghost stories. You can find our Southern Ghost Stories books over at Amazon as well as Barnes & Noble. Also, is there a local ghost story near you that you would like to see us dig into and do a story on? Please leave us a comment.